Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And today I'm doing a video continuing my series of top 20 movies of the decade. This time I'm going to cover the 1960s. I'm going to cover 20 through 16 on my list. Something I've been doing, I kind of stopped to do rankings of the best pictures of each decade. So I'm now caught up with, I've done rankings of the best pictures all the way up to 60s, and I've done my top 20 favorite movies of each decade up to the 60s. So now I'm kind of syncing the two together here anyway. So yeah, so let's go with I was going to say, looking at my list, always interesting to look at each decade and what I like the most. But comedies and musicals really dominate this decade for me. It's really probably one of the best decades for musicals, and I'm a musical fan, or a fan of musical movies. So definitely some great classics here. Also comedies. I usually have a couple comedies each decade, but I think this is maybe the most comedies I've added in. Maybe just because at this time, I don't know, there's more romantic comedies or kind of the more mainstream of the decade, and yeah, just a lot of great comedic, classic comedies, great comedian actors at this time that I really enjoy. Really reached out to me when I was looking at my favorite movies of the decade. Anyways, and there's really not a lot of action. Really, just James Bond is really the only big action movie franchise of the 60s. I think action movies don't really take off until the 70s. So there's not a lot of action movies except for maybe some westerns on my list. And so those don't dominate like other decades. And anyways, of course, it's a period where the dramas, even dramas, usually have a mixture of comedy in them. Obviously, 60s, we're looking at a time before where most of the 60s, I think, is more family-friendly movies. Not till the late 60s we start getting to some more, start pushing the boundaries of what we can do as far as talking about sex and so forth, like with The Graduate and stuff like that. And of course, 1969 with Midnight Cowboy, which those movies aren't on my list. I'll just say right now, I don't like those kind of movies. But anyways, I like the family-friendly movies personally and the comedies. So anyway, so let's go with number 20. And especially these first four are all comedies I'm going to talk about. Number 20 is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World from 1963. What a great title. I love saying that title. Kind of long, but I love saying Mad, 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 Mad World. This is a very unique movie in that it combines some of the great comedians of the 50s, I want to say 40s, 50s era, and then some into the 60s also. It's got the greatest collection of comedic actors that were huge, huge at the time. You look at them now, you're like, who are these people? But at that time, these were humongous stars of the time. And so what I like about watching this movie is kind of marveling at how much star power is in it and how they all work together. But it's a funny movie about a guy. A bunch of random strangers are traveling, and they witness a car crash, and they go to see what happened. And the guy dies, but he says he's like got money buried somewhere, or he knows where there's money buried. And so he tells them where the money's buried. So all these people in these different families and vehicles are, going. They try to work together, trying to go find the buried treasure, but then they decide to go their separate ways because they can't get along. And so then the movie's edited, fragmented into seeing there's a bunch of different families, 5 or 6, I want to say, families or people, individuals that are going after this buried treasure. And so you kind of cut between each of them as they're having a lot of trouble trying to travel to this destination. That's where the comedy comes from, them getting into trouble. All the while, this police captain or whatever, played by Spencer Tracy, is the police know that they're kind of tailing them, and they know that they're going after this buried treasure, so they're following them to get to this money. Of course, and then they're going to take it from them. But they're almost betting on who's going to win, who's going to get there first. So, but it's interesting. You cut to seeing what they're doing as they're watching and listening, what's going on. Anyway, so it's great. It's been done before. The Rat Race was a movie that was kind of a rehash of this movie, or kind of a similar movie to this. So it's kind of an interesting plot, good comedic plot that's I think it's been tried a couple times, and you can't go wrong. Everybody's going after buried treasure and seeing what's going on and the trouble they're getting into, and the obstacles they have to cover. Makes for a great comedy, I think, and one of the classics. It is a bit long, I have to say. I wish it was shorter, and I've seen commentary of people that don't like it because it's too long. It's a little boring at parts, and I can see that it does get a little boring, a little slow at some points. They definitely should have cut it down, the length of it, but still, it's I think worth watching. Just see all these comedic legends, and I'm gonna read some of them off just to say. Spencer Tracy, like I said, I think it was his last movie role that he ever was in. This or Who's Coming to Dinner. But we got Milton Berle, Ethel Merman, Mickey Rooney, Sid Caesar, Buddy Hackett, Phil Silvers, Jonathan Winters, Peter Falk, Buster Keaton. Oh, I was gonna say those are the main ones, and then there's some bunch of cameos. Peter Falk, Buster Keaton, Don Knotts, Carl Reiner, the Three Stooges, Jerry Lewis, and Jimmy Durante are some cameos who are all comedy legends in their own right. But yeah, those are some huge stars, and there's some other actors I left off that I actually like too that maybe aren't as big, but these are the real big stars at the time. Especially love Jonathan Winters. Is so funny in this role. This is a movie I remember watching and going, I don't know who this guy is, but I really like Jonathan Winters. He really stands out. Directed by Stanley Kramer, really good director at this time. Did a lot of great movies in the 60s anyway, so in my opinion, it's worth a watch. It's Mad World, number 20 on my list. All right, number 19, another classic comedy, The Producers. Came out in 1967, directed and written by Mel Brooks. This is the first movie that Mel Brooks wrote and directed, starring Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, the two main actors. I believe this is Gene Wilder's first movie that he acted in, but it was the second movie that came out because he also did Bonnie and Clyde. He had a small part, very small part in Bonnie and Clyde that he shot right after this movie. Bonnie and Clyde came out first, though, so this is actually a second role, but first movie he actually got hired onto. And I'm a huge fan of Gene Wilder, one of my favorite actors of all time. Anyways, yeah, great comedy. If you don't know, you probably have heard of The Producers. Guy who's produces Broadway musicals, and Gene Wilder's like accountant who comes up with this idea that you can make money off of a flop. I can't go into it because I don't quite understand how it works, but somehow they try to find the worst musical they can come up with and get a lot of, I guess, donors and backing to it, and then having it flop right away, they can somehow make more money, and somehow it works that way. But Gene Wilder especially really good. He got an Oscar nomination for supporting actor for playing just a totally comedic role, and he is very, very funny. Mel Brooks won an Oscar for writing, which is very interesting, winning an Oscar for original screenplay for a comedy, and it's the only Oscar he's won. So it's interesting that both Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks, right off the bat, I mean, this is the most decorated movie. I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie of theirs. There's some greater, better ones like Young Frankenstein, and so forth. But definitely, the Academy really took notice of their first trip into the movies. I don't care for Zero Mostel as much. That was the only role I'd probably change. But of course, they made a big Broadway musical that won a bunch of Tonys, and they made a movie with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick in the 2000s. So it's definitely been very profitable, The Producers. But this is the original non-musical one. Anyway, so I have that number 19. Number 18, I have The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. I'm not repeating myself. That's the name of the movie. The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. From 1966. A very interesting comedy dealing with the Cold War at the time. The fear of Cold War, where a Russian sub, I believe it is, kind of gets stranded by the coast of the small town on, I can't remember what state they're in. I want to say somewhere in the East Coast or something. Their sub is stranded, and so some of the Russian officers go on shore to try to find a way to fix the submarine, or I don't know if I forget. They have to get something to take back the submarine, and it's kind of the small town. And then of course, they see the submarine and they think they're being attacked by the Russians, so they're panicked. Anyways, and so if they don't work together, this could start, World War III. So there's a lot of tension there. But it is a comedy dealing with that very serious subject matter. Directed by Norman Jewison, one of my favorite directors of this time period. One of his first big movies. Of course, nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, I believe. Alan Arkin plays like the lead Russian. He has a Russian accent. If you know Alan Arkin, great comedic actor. Gets nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor, which is very interesting since he was a pretty comedic role, but so good that he got an Oscar nomination. Very good actor. I like Alan Arkin. Very good. Also has Carl Reiner, Eva Marie Saint, Brian Keith, and Jonathan Winters. Another role I've seen Jonathan Winters in, and just like in Mad World, he really like steals every scene. He's probably my favorite character in it. I love seeing anything with Jonathan Winters in it. Great comedic actor. But yeah, another great comedy worth a watch. If you never heard of it or watched it before. But yeah, The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming at number 18. Number 17, I got The Odd Couple from 1968. Written by Neil Simon, who wrote a lot of famous plays at that time, comedies. One of the best comedy writers of all time. It stars Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, who Jack Lemmon's character, they're friends who play poker. Jack Lemmon's getting divorced. His wife is divorcing him, so he needs a place to stay. So he gets to stay with his friend Walter Matthau's character. I believe his name is Felix. It's Walter's, I think, his name is Felix, and I forget Jack's name on top of my head. But it's one of these things where he has to stay with him until he can find a place to stay. And they get on each other's nerves because Jack Lemmon's character, or Jack Lemmon might be Felix, I can't remember. Jack Lemmon's character is more organized, more of a clean freak. And he was married, of course, and all this. And Walter Matthau's character is more of a bachelor who's a bit of a slob. And so they don't get along. They end up not getting along because their personalities are different. And so all the comedy comes from those two. Those two are so good. I mean, one of the best comedy duos of all time, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. And this is the second movie they made together. The Fortune Cookie was the first one, which I don't have on my list. The Fortune Cookie is a pretty decent comedy. Not as good as this one, but that was the first one they teamed up together. But they teamed up like 5 or 6 times in there, at least, maybe more. And always knock it out of the park, those two together. Jack Lemmon especially is one of my favorite actors of all time. So funny in this role, so straight-laced and so irritating. But yeah, so just kind of sees them as Jack Lemmon's trying to get back on his feet and all that. Simple plot structure, but very, very funny performances. So I have The Odd Couple, number 17, and then the last movie I'm going to talk about in this video, number 16 on my list, is a more of a suspense thriller called Wait Until Dark from 1967. I don't think it's as well known of a movie as talked about, but excellent thriller. Yeah, a movie deals with Audrey Hepburn plays the main character who is blind. So a woman who's blind, she's married, but her husband's away. She comes across a doll or he bought a doll, but it got mixed up with another doll that had drugs in it, and so now the husband's away, and this doll that has drugs in it, or whatever, is in her possession, which she doesn't know. And then Alan Arkin again shows up, and he this time plays a really bad guy, a murderer, drug dealer who is looking for these drugs. He ends up getting 2 other guys, Richard Crenna and Jack Weston, 2 thieves, to work for him, or he's gonna blackmails them to work for him to try to figure out where this doll is. Instead of just going in, I guess, and attacking this blind lady, they try to get these 2 guys to kind of work with her and try to figure out if she knows. Of course, she doesn't know anything till later in the movie, and then she finds out what's going on. And then the very last scene, I mean, really, really incredibly well done, where Alan Arkin's character is terrorizing Audrey Hepburn's character You know, it's fairly pretty scary moment, of course, because she's blind and she's alone in this house, and he's got a knife and he's trying to get information out of her, and there's a fight and a struggle. And anyways, and there's actually a pretty good jump scare in there. Pretty good for 1967. I mean, it really kind of keeps you on your feet, kind of keeps you tensed up. Does an incredible job at that. Yeah, definitely worth a look, especially in Halloween season. If you want a little bit of a scare, this is actually a pretty good movie for that. Audrey Hepburn, great performance. Obviously, one of the best actresses at this time period. Alan Arkin's very interesting as a bad guy because he's a comedic actor, but he's playing totally serious. Yet sometimes it's hard to take him as a serious actor because he has a little goofiness to him in the way he speaks. But I still think he did a good performance, and I'm still kind of scared of him, so it worked for me. Directed by Terrence Young, which I didn't realize till I was looking this up, because I knew Terrence Young from directing James Bond. He directed the very first James Bond movie, Dr. No, and he also did from Russia with Love and Thunderball, so 3 of the first 4 Bond movies. So he's having a really good time in the 60s. I mean, some big hits here, including this one. So yeah, definitely check out Wait Until Dark at number 16. So there's my 5 I'm going to talk about today. And so I'll cover another 5 another day. And just tell me if you know about these movies, what you think about them. If these are movies you like. What are your favorite movies of the 60s? Love all these comments discussing this topic. And just thank you for watching, and thank you for liking the videos. And just thank you to all the subscribers for supporting the channel. And I really appreciate you. Have a good day.